Hey everybody, look at this. This is Conference with Real Property Negotiators. This is for the revised special closed session agenda for this Thursday, October 29th, 2020. Coliseum Properties, various parcels bounded by San Leandro Street, 66th Avenue, Hagenberger Road, and Interstate 880. City negotiators, Edward Reiskin, Betsy Lake, Larry Gallegos, Barbara J. Parker, City Attorney, and Bijal Patel. Negotiating parties, Oakland Athletics Baseball Company under negotiation, price and terms of payment, or both for the purchase, sale, or lease of the property. Now, really, that's not the way that should be worded. It's supposed to be worded for the Black NFL group that was assembled by Ray Bobbitt, who had a meeting with the Oakland Athletics on Thursday, which went in a way that was described to me by one attendee as uneventful. In other words, the A's are supportive of what they want to do. And there wasn't much to tell beyond that. Now, it's unfortunate that the city of Oakland would seem to have a couple of people that are not as openly supportive of what Mr. Bobbitt and company are trying to do. And what I'm getting at is this whole controversy over this meeting title. And the problem is that the African American Oakland NFL expansion group was made to believe that the meeting date and place that I showed you was for them, and that their proposal was going to be brought up in closed session. And it could certainly have been worded that way. There was nothing stopping the city of Oakland. There was nothing stopping, as I understand it, Oakland Councilman Larry Reed from naming it that way. But it didn't happen. And so now the group is left to wonder if their proposal and where they are really going to be heard at all. They met with Betsy Lake, the other person that I named, who is the city of Oakland's real estate negotiator, and I believe they also met with Larry Gallegos, who's a long-time city of Oakland staffer who's worked on sport economic development related issues for the Oakland Office of Economic Development. So it is clear, at least to me, that the city of Oakland should be ready, and the city council itself in closed session, to hear a preliminary report on the group and what they're doing, how far they've come, and the number of African-American, well-moneyed African-American business people they've managed to assemble to this date is quite impressive. So much so that it caused me to rail, as you remember, when Rick Tripp was announced as having a plan. And again, I will emphasize this. I have nothing at all against Rick or personal nature at all. As I explained to him in our private Facebook conversation, my key 1,000,000% interest, if there is such a thing, 100% interest, is in the city of Oakland establishing a new day for how it does economic development, and in particular with respect to sports. Too often it has been entirely heavily politicized rather than having a process that everybody goes through. And in that, if Larry doesn't like this particular development group, rather than throwing up roadblocks, Larry should say so. And then he should also explain why. Larry, I have really defended Larry over the years, but in this particular instance, he's making it difficult for me to do so. For reasons, his actions, which I don't want to go into detail about at this point, are troubling. And a number of people have talked about them, and I have been hesitant to because of our long relationship. But for some particular reason that I don't understand, and I'd love to be proven wrong by him, in the completion, I get the impression he doesn't want Ray to succeed. All right. And I'm happy to be wrong. But let me say this, okay? And I want everyone to understand that an elected official in California has the right to select whatever developer they want to be involved in a project. When I first discovered this, it was 1994. Let me tell you a little story. I was Montclarian columnist at the time, but prior to that, I worked for the city of Oakland. I was interned at the Office of Economic Development. They later rehired me as a consultant because of a giant computer model that I developed using Lotus spreadsheet, which could evaluate the economic and fiscal impact of any redevelopment project area in the state of California. So what happened was that I had discovered that over that time, what a developer could legally really do with respect to an elected official. I wrote in 94 for the Montclarian a column that put out the news that Michael Baines, who was a well-known and loved contractor in Oakland, had the inside track to develop old Oakland housing. Then Oakland Mayor Elihu Harris saw me at a fundraiser for then Denver Mayor Wellington Webb, which is held at the Pritkin Mansion in San Francisco in the Mission. It's an interesting antebellum style place. Quite literally fascinating trip, but that's another story. At any rate, I'm walking through, Elihu sees me, starts yelling, "Why'd you write that column?" And Larry Reed, who was his chief of staff at the time, said 2 prominent African-American men should not be arguing. And I thought, prominent? I didn't view myself that way. I said, I didn't say anything bad about Elihu at all. I wrote a follow-up column to show Mayor Harris that he had the right to say he wanted Baines as his developer. And I showed him the specific items of case law that backed him at the time, which I'm certain has grown in number. That does not mean, okay, that a developer has the right to pay to play. No, that does not mean that at all. But the law is such that an elected official can say they want a particular developer publicly. They can say, I want, Mickey Mouse, Disney, to develop my sports stadium. They have that right. That has been there for a long time. So keep that in mind this time. The city of Oakland can specify, and I say to say this, who they want to work on the Coliseum project. The city of Oakland can say they want the A's to work with Ray Bobbitt's group, and they can establish a contractual agreement and a resolution that rubber stamps that and sets a kind of a groundwork for anybody else that may want to come in and who to report to, so there isn't this craziness going around. That's how economic development is supposed to be done. Oakland is not doing it that way, and someone's got to say something about it. Might as well be me. I've at this point now where I've earned the stripes to say it, and I dare anybody to prove that I have not. So this is what ought to be done. They have to stop playing games with people or having the look of playing games. It's not right, and that's why all these sideshows come up, and that's why somebody comes up and says, well, I have a connection to somebody in the Middle East. Look, anybody who tells you that they have a connection to anyone else in the Middle East is to be looked at with a jaundiced eye. Development projects are not built where someone takes their own cash money and spends it to build the stadium. People who say that about what happens in terms of what gets built, the people who really know what's going on wind up laughing at them behind their back, but not in front of them, okay? Just letting you know. That's not how it works. We can do better in Oakland. Larry can do better, all right? Oakland deserves better. It really does. And it's about time we demanded that it does better in how it develops sports as economic development. And it needs to stop with this leftist idea that sports isn't something that should be invested in with respect to economic development. That's not true. just across the bay in San Francisco are excellent examples of how the Giants Stadium, for example, has completely transformed a major part of San Francisco and created a lot of jobs. So don't even try. There are great examples of economic development in sports done right. Oakland can do it too. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com.